But if anybody has a question or something they'd like to ask, Hassan is on with us. I think, right? Hassan, are you still here? Oh, yeah, he's right in front of me. So this is the lovely Andy sitting here in front of us. Absolutely nothing like his character.
Yay.
Yay. And Dennis is with us. Absolutely nothing like Mr. Greg Johnson. Um, they're real people. So
Oh, really, Michelle?
nice and decent people. So feel free to ask them as well, keeping in mind it's a character play and not who they are. But if anybody has a question, feel free.
Michelle,
Yes.
a question for you regarding the short series. Are you going to make them available for sale one now that you have all of them completed?
The final three, you mean, or just all of them as a set?
All of them as a set.
We've actually talked about it. Bill Garland, who's online with us, he's been my primary producer since 2020. And him and I have actually talked about that quite a bit and kind of putting it together. So the short answer is yes. We're still kind of talking about how to package that.
I have a question for Dennis Wells, who I feel like I know the least of all the cast. Was it hard to play a homophobic Bible-inspired person amidst a cast that was sort of very different, with the exception of your wife, Gina, early on?
Yeah, absolutely. I know everybody else knows, like my daughter is LGBTQT, whatever. And sorry.
I
And
love you,
so,
Dennis.
you know,
Stay quiet.
there's not a bone in my body that's like this guy, Greg, but somewhere in there was, I suppose. Yeah, it was a challenge. I wouldn't say difficult. It was a challenge, and it was I thank you, Michelle, and all the rest of the cast, Bjorn, Jonathan, Beth, Maggie, everyone, for the support and just good work that was put into this thing. It was really, I really enjoyed being part of it. And thank you, Michelle.
Yeah. For this last three episodes,
Gina, I'm sorry.
Dennis currently lives in Arizona. He moved to Arizona a few years ago now, 3-4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. Yeah.
And so he had to fly up here from Arizona to be part of the finale. But when I reached out to him and said, I really want to wrap this up and I need you, and he basically said, name the time and the place, and he was here. Because I knew the feature film, the person who had the last word between this father-son was the father, because Justin never had the words to say to his dad. And I knew I wanted that scene, and it would only work if Dennis could be here. So I was thrilled that he was willing to come back.
It's a pleasure.
We love you.
I actually have a part two. Do you feel like it was hard to read your face at the very end? Do you think some aspect of what Justin said got into your brain a little bit? Maybe it seemed like maybe on some level. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think there's a lot of Justin in Greg, but it's all repressed. And so that's part of the dynamic of that whole thing. So that's not probably what Michelle was writing, but that was what was in my head. I'm sorry.
I actually remember, Dennis, our very first conversation that you, me, and Jonathan sat down. You made like a charcuterie board. I distinctly remember coming to your house and sitting down with you two. Because Jonathan, you were incredibly gracious to come and be part of that conversation, because Dennis, you were a little bit nervous about playing Mr. Johnson and really just wanted a conversation with him and I. So the three of us met, and I remembered what you shared at that meeting, and I integrated it into the finale, because I remember you saying almost what you just did about you and Justin and some of the crossovers that will never be verbalized. But it was a lot of that drew me into the finale, and this scene between the two of you was your perspective on Greg and what we don't know about him. But I thought that final moment, he played it so beautifully. And I know we talked about that this room was just going to be very silent and still. And he needed to really kind of go through several emotions. And there used to be a slightly elongated part that happened where he actually called the girl back in to do reading again. And we decided in the end, we just needed to leave you in that silence. And that was the choice of the life that you were going to lead.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. I was incredibly blessed with Matt and Darren as my my production team, but my post-production team, and just their eye and their wisdom when it comes to editing and really guiding it for me. I'm a long-winded writer. Jonathan will be like, no. Because God bless him, he memorized a lot of lines for that day. But he did them word for word. I was so proud, Jonathan. I can't even tell you, because usually that's not the case. But he did it word for word, and God, it was beautiful, Jonathan. It really was. I hope you enjoyed that.
That was a really challenging scene. I did it for there were some takes where I didn't do it word for word, so let's be fair.
All right.
Yeah. And I don't remember so much being gracious, but I remember being grateful that Dennis wanted to take that extra time in that first film to get together and talk about the characters and rehearse that scene, because ultimately it added a lot of depth and texture to the story. It was really beautiful.
Well, I think in the feature film, the two of you were only physically in 2 scenes together.
Right.
The rest of the movie was just the presence of each other was always there.